So I'm going to summarize, not by individual presentation, but by the overarching themes of Session 4, which was incentivizing policy and the cultural shifts to enhance data sharing. And the overarching theme is probably best summed up by the first speaker, who noted that society, broadly defined, was now demanding that data sharing was a public good, and that we needed to accommodate that public good. And throughout the course of the morning today, we heard words come up over and over: trust, honesty, transparency, collaboration, privacy, both the pro and the con, reproducibility, holding versus owning, as was mentioned yesterday, and commitment to doing certain things. And all of our multiple stakeholders acknowledged this common good, but every single stakeholder struggled with how this was actually going to be implemented. The academic community spoke of the fear of losing credit for what they were doing and how they were toiling to get their research done. The journal editors spoke frankly about they didn't want to alienate authors, and the authors would go somewhere else. Industry spoke a bit about some concerns over the loss of proprietary information. And then every stakeholder talked about, well, what actually are we going to share or liberate or release, and what are the challenges around that? And then I would say that the final two themes are incentives and what's still needed. And on the incentives, I thought John Wilbanks put it probably best of all. He said, well, the biggest incentive is that we're going to do it with or without you. And we can either be part of the movement, or we can stand by and watch it happen. And I think John eloquently gave us reasons why we want to be part of it. A lot of focus on altruism and the notion of public good, but then incentives really going back to altruism doesn't cure everything, that there are going to have to be some pushes to incentivize us to do it, akin to the clinicaltrials.gov project, which has incentivized many of us to register our clinical trials. Steve Goodman and others talked about reworking the promotion process in academic places, which are clearly centuries behind, and need to address that. And finally, I thought that our NIH colleague spoke eloquently about actually funding being available for some of the tools to do this, and data standards and tools to share. And a provocative comment that was brought up by several is, would the funding agencies be willing to consider one's track record of sharing in one's ability to garner future funding, something to be considered. The needs that we still, I think, are seeking, there needs to be some collective voice, and this is maybe best said amongst the journals, that call for enforcement of the standards. There need to be mechanisms for doing it. John Wilbanks, I think, threw out the notion of crowdsourcing. He didn't call it that, but he's really asking us to consider, how do we harness the citizen scientist? We need some consistencies in the language. We started the day with that yesterday. Clear to me as an educator is that we need to think about how to educate the next generation to be data sharers from the outset. And then there's a lot of alignment that needs to happen. It needs to happen in the journals. It needs to happen in academia. It needs to happen in the regulators. The back and forth between Hans and Janet Woodcock talked about, really brought to the notion that we don't have international harmonization. We can see that playing out in the conference room here. We've got to align ourselves to, if we accept that this is a common good that we all want to sign in for, but there's a lot of issues. But I think there's a lot of incentives that can be put in place to move us towards this common good.